Greetings and welcome to the Marginally Geeky Show. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. This is episode number 39, and tonight we are discussing Star Wars Aftermath by Chuck Wendig. Tonight I'm joined by Sean. How are you doing, sir?
Living the dream.
And Jennifer. How are you doing, lady?
Also living the dream.
I think, it's more of a nightmare in some cases, but yeah, we're living it at this point.
We're still in the midst of COVID-19 and
yes, we are.
Yeah.
In fact, we pushed off this episode. This was supposed to be our last episode, and we pushed it off so we could talk about what we've been reading, if we've been reading anything during the COVID-19 outbreak. So, and this is one of the things that we have been reading, or at least some of us have been reading. Our other Canadian family, on the other hand, is in the middle of a move, so they haven't had a lot of chance to read stuff.
Yeah.
So I have a bad feeling over the next week. Well, actually, they have to be out of the house by the 7th, so it should only last another week or so. I was going to say, I have a bad feeling the next couple of episodes of stuff coming up, like, they're going to be no shows.
Yeah, they've got a good excuse.
Yeah,
By the way, today is Sean and I's friend-iversary on Facebook.
It is.
Yay!
Oh my
awesome.
gosh. Isn't that a reason to celebrate?
Very cool. Well, let's go ahead and get into the book. This is the first in a trilogy, and we are going to read the trilogy. So it's going to be this book, the second, and the third book coming up here in the next couple of months. But this is the Aftermath series. One of the key things about this book series is it came into play after the acquisition of Star Wars by Disney. And thus it is considered canon. So the events that happen in this book are considered to be quote unquote canon, and affect and are pull in from several of the other books and the movies and the cartoons and everything else. And we do have characters in here from a lot of those other series. So the basic premise of the book, at least this first one, is set pretty much right after the end of the Return of the Jedi. So literally, the book starts off with celebrations on what is the home planet, the big home planet called again? Coruscant. It starts off with celebrations on Coruscant of them ripping down, which we saw in the end of the special edition of Empire Strikes Back. I'm sorry, of Return of the Jedi. We see them pulling down the giant statue of Emperor Palpatine. And it talks about how, everyone's excited, the Empire is gone. And then you're immediately reminded that, okay, yes, the Emperor and Vader are dead and their super weapon is gone, but the Empire is not gone. Like, you still have to deal with them. And that is what the focus of this book series is Aftermath. It's literally what happens after the Empire falls or is defeated.
In the words of George Washington in Hamilton, winning is easy. Governing is harder.
Yes, it is.
Historically accurate, I'm sure.
Yes. The first 2/3 of this book mainly focus on, they're primarily new characters. We do hear a little bit about Princess Leia. We do hear from Mon Mothma, because we see her in several things talking about how she does not want to rule like the Empire did. She doesn't want a centralized army. She wants to, eventually break that up. And like her, at least one of her advisors are like, we can't do that yet. Like we have to stamp out the rest of the Empire before we can consider doing that. And I can, it's interesting because you can see it from both sides. It's like, yes, you don't want to basically just, we're replacing the Empire with a new one. But on the other hand, it's like, we also still have to we still have to do a little bit more fighting. There's still some more fighting to go. What's funny is one of the characters even mentions that, it's all just one giant war. It's just chopped up in little pieces so that we can digest it better. But yeah, so go ahead and we'll just run around real quick. Our quick thoughts. Did you enjoy the book or not? Sean?
Yeah. So I listened to the audio version of it, which, after listening to so many other audiobooks, this one is like an actual production. Like, there's the sound effects, and you can tell there was a lot of thought that went into like just the background of the book and listening to it and stuff like that, which was refreshing. It took a little getting used to. The narration was great. The storyline itself, I found at the beginning of it, because there were so many different stories going on, that I started getting confused, especially the interludes. So I'm like, what the hell are all these interludes mixed in through the book for? Because at first they make no sense. They're like random things. But as the books progress, and if you get into the second and third one and all that, everything kind of congeals. It's like they're baking a cake. And all the ingredients, they're all weird and all that, but you throw them all together, mix them up, cook them. Yeah, it really does come together. About 3/4 of the way through this first book, the interludes start making a little bit more sense. They're not as random as you think. The story itself, it did flow really, really well. If you got past all those different stories, they really came together. And by the end of the book, I really did enjoy it. And that's why I did go out and purchase the next one pretty much right away and started listening to it.
What about you, Jen?
I liked it. I mean, I like most Star Wars books, and that's kind of their style, right? They are all over the place, kind of like the movies. You know, they give you like the beginning of 5 stories, and then they jump around, and then eventually some of them end up being connected, and then you don't find out what other pieces are until like 3 movies later, or books or chapters or whatever. But yeah, so that's a little frustrating when you're trying to just like understand what's going on, and you're like, why the hell did they bring this one story in for 2 chapters or 1 chapter, and then I don't hear from these people again the rest of the book? Or who is this random person? Like, I found myself going, oh my god, another new character.
Yeah.
Can we please not? Like, like 3/4 of the way into the book, they introduce a new storyline, and I'm just like, seriously? Can we just go with what we've got? We've got plenty. But anyways, I know, like Sean said, they're all ingredients and they're all part of a cake that we're gonna eventually get to see. But it's still hard to follow for sure. And I read it physically, so because I have all the Aftermath books. So this was a good excuse for me to actually read them. So I haven't gotten to experience the Star Wars fanfare of an audiobook yet, because I keep reading them.
Oh, okay. I also listened to the book. I've actually listened to all 3 of them, and finished the trilogy. You are completely right, Sean, about how, and actually you as well, Jennifer, about how it seems like we keep getting these random characters, and some of them come in for a little bit, and then they kind of get killed off, or they're not really that big, and it is confusing. It's like, okay, well, who do I actually really need to be paying attention to? And about 3/4 of the way through the book, you realize, okay, these are going to be our core characters. And then after that, it gets more enjoyable. And definitely in the second and third book, it's the same way. We actually get a lot more of some older characters in the second and third book as well, which I thought was nice. But yeah, it's once you kind of figure out who it is you're supposed to be focusing on, it makes it a lot more enjoyable. Because like you said, Jennifer, these and both Sean, actually both, these interludes come in, you're just like, oh, okay, so there's a reporter and something's happening. Okay, and then the next thing is literally like, let's skip all the way across the galaxy, and it's like, okay. I do really enjoy like you said, the production value on the Star Wars books, because you get, the sound of, not only is he reading, it's like the TIE fighter came in, and you actually hear a TIE fighter, screaming by, and you get the shots, you get Wookiees actually roaring, and
great impression.
So yeah, it's now, I remember talking a little bit about it with Ray, and it kind of threw him off. But I think after a while he finally kind of got used to it. But yeah, I've just come to expect that if I'm going to listen to a Star Wars audiobook, because they're all pretty much done the same, that I'm going to get all these sound effects, and the voice acting is pretty good. For the most part, it's one narrator, but occasionally we will get other people step in, especially for some of the more specific voices.
I was gonna ask, do they mimic the well-known characters, like Han was in this one?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the guy who does Han is.
He is.
Yeah, he's pretty good. And then of course, like when it's Chewbacca, they're playing his actual. And then if it's not R2's,
like we would know if it was a replicant.
Oh no,
or
you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference. There are some different Wookiees in here,
Yeah.
and they do play different.
that's true.
Clearly a different sounding Wookiee. So, now that being said, the music and some of the background music and some of the sound effects and stuff, I've heard in other book series that have been done by especially I think it's Penguin Random House that does this one, and which I'm fine with. I'm like, okay, that y'all own those sound effects, that's cool. But I mean, they actually went to Lucas and was like, Lucasfilm were like, hey, we need a TIE fighter and this, that, and the other, and it's nice to get that stuff in there. I enjoyed the book. If you really tried to pin me down and be like, what exactly did you like about it? I'd have to really think about it, because all three of these books do really blend in together. That's one of the problems that I was having was, like I said, I've read all three of them, and I had to go back and I was like, okay, I know this happened, but was that book 2, book 3, or was that book 1? It's like I said, it all does kind of blend together. I do like the time period that this is set in, because this is right after Return of the Jedi, whereas the Force Awakens, there's a good deal of time there, and this does start. That's one of the other nice things about this book series is it does start to set up some of the stuff that we don't actually see pay off until the Rise of Skywalker. Specifically, the fact that the Empire's like, well, maybe we need to head to the outer limits and start rebuilding there. Whatever it was called, the
Outer Rim.
Outer Rim. Yeah, there we go.
Wrong show.
Yeah, wrong show. We need to start heading out there and to start to rebuild, and kind of that's where our original power came from. So that makes sense in the final movie, because everyone's like, where the hell did all this stuff come from?
I really wish I'd have read this sooner. I mean, these books were out before, I think, 8 and 9 even, or at least a couple of them. So I think it would have helped answer a lot of the questions I had about just like what happened between 6 and 7. Like, who was, like, how did we randomly just jump all these years in the future, and what happened to the Republic? I thought they won, so this kind of helps fill in some of those gaps, and also set the groundwork for some of the people we see later on.
Let me ask y'all this. I personally, now granted, not that I have all the time in the world to do this, and I don't do this. I will say I think the Marvel universe does this better, but to fully get everything out of a Marvel movie, even though the comics don't specifically lead into them, it's better to have a bunch of knowledge so that you can pick out some of that little stuff that they throw in there and kind of have a background. So you're like, oh, I know who that character is, instead of them just kind of showing up. I think Marvel does this better. But that being said, do you like this model that they've gone to say that, okay, if you want just the bare minimum, you watch the movies. If you want more, then you've got things like, the cartoon series and stuff like that. But if you really want the full Star Wars experience, you've got to watch the movies, you've got to watch the cartoon series, play the games, read the books. Are y'all okay with that? Because I know there's a lot of, I've talked to some people they're like, that's what I don't like anymore, is that, with the original trilogy and the prequels, for the most part, you could just watch them as movies and get most everything. And they're like, it seems like since we moved into this new stage, I have to do a bunch of homework. They look at it as homework. I look at it as just expanding the universe, but they look at it as homework. I have to do all this homework to enjoy these movies.
I've got to say it's a little overwhelming, because I'm not a gamer, and I'm not going to play a game just to get the storyline. I'll read up on it. I'll go on Wikipedia or whatever fan articles and read it, but then I have to know to read it, or I have to know to look for it too. So that's the other problem, is like I don't have time to necessarily do all this research. I want to just kind of, know that if I'm watching the movies, then I've got the knowledge I need. And instead, like you said, we're finding more and more we're having to kind of write a dissertation or read a dissertation just to get the basics of it.
As long as the movie stands up on its own, I'm good with that. Now, if the movie stands up on its own and there's like a million other things behind the scenes that you could pick up on the movie, if you knew all the history, I'm good with that too, depending on what it is. I might have to go back, like, I got time. I can go back and read or whatever. YouTube is a beautiful thing. There's like 20-minute YouTube videos of these geeks that have done all the work for you. It's great.
That is true.
And Marvel, all the Marvel movies have.
Oh, I did that for every Marvel movie that came out the last like 5 years.
Well, yeah.
Because they come out so far apart. Yeah.
I don't mind that anymore. Like, I am a completionist. Like, I'm that guy that has to have like 100% score on a game or something like that. Otherwise, I lay awake at night. I'm finding movies aren't as bad. I used to be like that, but with family and the home life and stuff like that, and just lack of time, I don't think I'm going to be able to be like that until I'm retired. So I got a long ways to go. So it's my own personal thing where I'm trying to let that go and just enjoy something for what it is. And then if I can get stuff from it later, if I can go back and see the movie like a year later or something like that, and I have a little bit more knowledge, I'm good with that now. So
it is kind of cool to like watch something and know like, oh, I picked up on something that, other people may not have, but also I'm not above like watching the movie and then going and finding the Easter egg reel and then watching it again and looking for them, because I don't need to go into it knowing every single Easter egg, but there are things I'm going to still pick up that the average person wouldn't, just because I've been watching this universe for longer. So
now if a movie doesn't hold up because you're missing out on a lot, like for the Marvel movies, say you had to watch all the Marvel TV series before you could really get that movie, well, that's a failure on the movie's part. I think should never have been released. It needs to be able to hold up on its own without any prior knowledge, unless it's like a part of a trilogy or something like that.
Right.
But and there's been a couple like that too. I find the Resident Evil series can kind of get like that.
Oh, yes.
So, but that's a different story.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of our main characters. Like I said, we do see Princess Leia in here. We hear her talking. We do hear from Mon Mothma. But for the most part, and then we've got Wedge Antilles showing back up. So which is nice. We kind of get to see what happened to Wedge. We also get, but some of our new characters. One of the biggest one is Timon Wexley, aka Skip Wexley, aka I should say aka Snap Wesley, also played by Greg Grunberg in the new trilogy that came out.
He's the fat mind-reading cop in here.
Yes. So whenever we see him, spoiler alert, when we see him die in episode 9, it's like, oh, okay, well, that guy that showed up for maybe 5 minutes total screen time, whatever, he's dead.
He had a little bit of in the last one too, in episode 8, right? He was he had
some comedic relief.
Minor character.
Yeah, he did. He had some stuff. Okay, but anyway, I mean,
after reading this, and then you guys, I think it was you guys actually gave me that connection. Thinking back to the 9th movie, I was like, damn, that hurts now. Like,
yes, it does.
So I liked him in the movies, but he was a whiny little bitch in this book, and I really wanted to punch him in the face. Like, I get it. You had a grudge against your parents for what happened, but like, he was so selfish, and he was just, I mean, she should have went and either called someone, at least sent out a call about Wedge when she first got it, and not like a week or 2 later, because her son was being a little brat and she decided to just ignore the call and not help Wedge. Like, that pissed me off. I was like, what's wrong with you? You just, okay, I'm just.
And of course you're referring to his mother, Nora Wexley. So her story is her husband disappears. She goes out to try to find him, and in doing so basically gets recruited by the Rebel Alliance and becomes a really good pilot. In fact, she proves it several times during the book, which is really nice. But then she has these flashbacks. She was literally one of the 3 or 4 ships that went in with the Millennium Falcon and destroyed the second Death Star. Like, that is freaking awesome. Which makes sense because he's also a damn good pilot as well, and everything else. I like her character. I see where she's coming from, but there are definitely some things that she was blinded to. But whenever it's it seems like whenever she has to face normal life, real life, she has kind of a hard time with it. But when it's like the heat of battle, she just fucking focuses in, and like you said, she is a badass. Especially
Well,
she's a Batch 5.
I think she's got some like PTSD from the
Oh,
battles and from the stuff
I would
she
say
went
so,
through.
yes.
So, but yeah, she definitely like could call back her skills and jump right in and like kick some ass.
Yep.
Cool.
Let's see here. I'm trying to find Sloane. So one of the other characters, this is a character on the opposite side. We have an admiral, Admiral Ray Sloane. She basically is in charge of what's really pretty much what's left of the Empire's navy. And her idea is she came up with the idea we need to get together what's left of the higher ranking Imperial officers, and we need to figure out what we're going to do from here. And of course, she's basically like, it kind of sounds like a good idea, but yeah, it's a clusterfuck because she immediately comes in, she's greeted by a bunch of other people who are just nothing but like backhanded, stab you in the back constantly. I'm looking out for number one. And she's trying to get this organized meeting together to figure out where they're going to go from here. She's got the one dude, the one Grand Moff that's basically just constantly challenging her. And then you've got these other people, and she's trying to get all of this stuff done on a planet as a secret meeting that Wedge has stumbled into and has gotten information out. And so they're like, well, do we stay here and try to get the meeting done, or do we run? Do we go ahead and fight if the rebels show up? If the rebels, what do we do here? And everyone is literally pulling all different ways. They're like, no, we stand and fight right now and show them that the Empire is not gone. And then the other people are just like, are you kidding me? We're going to lose what's left of our Navy. Shut up. So I like her character. I see she's definitely pulled in a lot of different ways. And as it goes on, you end up liking her character more. Any thoughts on her in particular, or any of the other Imperial high ranking Imperials that were part of this meeting?
That whole group, they did pull from like every type of evil and put them into a category for each of those admirals or whatever.
Yeah.
You could tell they really consciously tried to do that. For Ray Sloane herself, she was adamant to keep the Empire as it was, where obviously it had failed. So and that was kind of a bit of a flaw in her character too. It was like, she's so hard grasping that we got to maintain what we have and keep things the status quo. And well, that didn't work either. So I found that was kind of, I don't know if they intentionally made that a character flaw or a bit of a plot hole or something like that, but
when she's
she
just
does
like
change over the book, and I think more into the second book, but
she started out so rigid and military.
Yeah,
but you could see that she was smart enough to adapt and change, which I liked. I really liked the older, like sassy admiral, or what was her rank? I don't even remember.
General Shale.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, the one who was just like, we need to pay attention to what was happening and learn from that, and didn't give the Grand Moff, like the Grand Moff, was it Pinion or whatever, didn't give two shits what he thought.
No.
Yeah. I kind of liked her too. So.
It's getting very frustrating.
Now that you say that, I think maybe her character was mainly written from the point of, this is our way of seeing, this is how a lot of people are. They're like, no, we want to stick with what we know, and this is our way of saying, okay, no, things are going to change. We got to get ready for new things. That was now I look at it, that was probably kind of the point of her character.
Well, they also, because they do give a bit of a backstory for her. I just can't remember if it's in the first or the second book. They're blending it together, but
I think it's the second.
She was rescued when the Empire came to her planet.
Yeah,
and that's what she's like, this is perfection. This is what saved me. This is what I want to have throughout the whole galaxy. And she kind of got blinded by it because it was almost like I don't know. She got saved by something, so automatically that's got to be the way we have to go. And she follows that path to the bitter end until things start happening around her that kind of like, oh crap, I'm getting screwed here because of my beliefs. But once again, I think I'm going into the second book.
That's fine.
Spoiler alert, I haven't read it yet.
Yeah. Some of the other characters that, we find, like I said, it takes a little while to figure out who it is we're really kind of following and everything else. So we get she's a bounty hunter. Her name is Jazz Amari. I love her character. She is an awesome character. Very, very level-headed, very much just, this is what I have to do. But, she seems very hardcore. But on the other hand, you're like, oh, she's probably got a real heart of gold down deep. And she does. She's just like, no, this makes sense. Yes, absolutely.
She's a
Let's
conscience.
join up and do this.
Yeah.
Yes. I love her character. And I have to say, I'm trying to find his name right offhand. The Imperial officer that kind of teams up with her.
Sinjir?
Sinjir.
Yeah.
I love
He was
Sinjir.
my favorite. Him and Bones.
Okay. So Sinjir, we'll get to that in a second. Sinjir was probably he might be my second favorite character. I love the fact that he is a badass in his own right, but he's just this smart ass drunk that just, he knows. And he also, and that's the other thing that ties him and her together,
and
is
he's
they both, they've both had this conscience grow into them, and they're just like, this is not good for me for what I was, but I like what I'm becoming. So,
also, props to the Star Wars universe for making such a prominent character an openly gay character, and for having other characters that are in the book. But can we get that in the actual movies too? Because like we've said, not everyone reads the books, and we need more representation in the rest of the universe. So props for that, but I would love to see that more than just like a quick kiss at the end of episode 9. I want to see real life in these movies. Thank you. Off my soapbox.
One other character that and honestly this goes back to what y'all were saying. We get 2/3 of the way through the book, because literally I'm looking at it. It's at the end of part 2. There's 3 parts of the book. At the end of part 2, we literally get one of our other big characters show up, and that's John Burrell. And he shows up like he's doing basically a jump from a ship, and everyone else gets killed, and you're like, okay, I don't know if this good dude's gonna survive or not. I really don't know if I should care if this dude survives or not. And then he survives, and you're like, okay, well, he's lasted a little bit longer. Okay, well, now he's joined up with them, so I guess he's part of the group. Okay, cool. He didn't show up for 2/3 of the book. That's fine, I guess. But yeah, like you mentioned just a second ago, the other one of this kind of main group, of that's going to end up going on through the rest of the books, is the repurposed B1 battle droid, Mr. Bones. I love Mr. Bones. I love the fact that everyone immediately looks at him and goes, he's a fucking battle droid. What's he gonna do? And he literally. And I also love the fact that I will say, I love the fact that this new version, this new world of Star Wars we're in, has just flat out embraced some of these ideas that the fans have had forever. The battle droids were garbage. They couldn't shoot shit. They one blast, they're out. My boys even realized it. Nick is like, oh yeah, it only takes one shot to kill those. And he's 8 years old. But in The Mandalorian, they fully embraced that, the stormtroopers can't hit shit or whatever. So what else is funny is if you end up watching Rebels, there's a point where there are a few clone troopers that have survived, and when they actually have to start attacking Imperial troops, they're just like, you can't hit me. You can't see anything out of that helmet. I can actually fight. They are very prominent about, stormtroopers can't shoot, battle droids are crap, but not this one. Mr. Bones is a freaking psychopath that laughs and dances. And Jennifer, this is one of the things that you're definitely missing by not listening to this book, because the voice that they use sounds
so good.
It sounds like a jacked up weird version of how they sounded in the thing. It's just Roger, Roger, and it's just
Oh
like,
God.
oh my
It is
God, he's about to kill
freaking
everyone.
hilarious. It is
Yes.
so good.
The droids are always the best part of all of the stories in Star Wars. Like
Yes.
this universe is the droid story. I'm convinced in every
I would
Yet they had
totally
the worst
agree with that.
cartoon.
So
The droids cartoon was horrible.
yeah, what happened with that? That's
Well, we won't talk about it.
But basically, okay, so that's our main story. We do have Han Solo and Chewbacca show up a little bit later, near the end of the
Another
book.
random side story, like
Yeah, and here's the funny thing. So in the second and third book, they definitely there's
Oh.
large portions of the book
Oh.
where it takes over and it's their story. So, which is also another funny. Obviously, I'm pretty sure all three of these books had to have been written at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
I can't see them have not been written in different
They're
things.
so well. The first two have been like tied together. Like they must have had a master plan and then wrote out the books.
Yeah, and honestly, when you get to the third one, you'll be like, yeah, it just picks up right where the second one goes, and it is very much like the Bobaverse books in that way, in that you can't. I mean, you technically could finish the first book and be done, but you would be like, no, there's got to be more to this, and so, but I do like. We also get callbacks. We get callbacks to different planets and stuff that we've been at. The main arc of the story is this small group comes together. They come to realize that the empires are there. They're the Imperials are there. They're trying to start a plan and figure out what they're going to do with the Empire from here on out, and how to stop them. And they do that by basically showing everyone on the planet that the empires the Imperials are here, and they're they were just here to just kind of hang out. And now they're here to like take over your planet. Are you going to stand and fight, or are you just going to sit back? And they basically get everyone going until the actual New Republic group shows up to kick a little ass. So was there anything in particular that you just you really kind of stood out to you that you really liked? Like I said, every time Bones shows up, I freaking love it. But I love the communication between some of the characters. Like there's a scene where they're making basically a snuff video to show that the Imperials are what they're doing or whatever, and they have Mr. Bones filming or whatever. But just like between Sanjir and Snap is just. It's good chemistry. These are good characters because you immediately know, oh, these two characters are in a scene. This is how it's going to go. It's going to be very somber. It's going to be very serious. Or in this case, they're just going to be cracking wise and be like, hope we survive. So, yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that really just kind of stood out to me.
You're right. The chemistry between the characters was really good. Especially, I think they used Sinjir most of the time because he seemed to be the go-between between all the characters.
Yeah.
And they even discuss it, like, because Sinjir was an Imperial. What
he was a special retention office. No,
not it was an officer. It was a.
It was like the guy that weeded out the weak people and punished them, which is ironic because then he defected.
Well, and like he said it himself, like it was, ironic that he learned that it was the Imperial mechanism itself that was the problem. And he learned that from like doing their dirty work for them and all that. Anyway, he learned to read people for his job and then would find their weaknesses and punish them and all that. But he's using that skill now to talk to these other characters. And anytime he's talking to them, you get that impression that he's kind of like, oh yeah, I know you're hiding something, and oh well, it's better to get that out, kind of thing. And he's doing this while he's drunk, which just makes it so much better. Like some of the drinks that they describe that he's like downing, like should be burning a hole in his stomach, kind of thing. But oh, give me another.
I really loved the scene between him and I think it was Jas, right, where they were talking, and she was like, "Okay, yeah, we can we can couple up after this, or what words did she use? She was like really just
You'd
like
be
so
acceptable or something like
she's
that.
so casual about how she's saying like, yeah, we can mate basically. And because I guess that's just her culture or her species way of doing it. And he's like, put off, but not because she's an alien, because he's just not interested in women. But it was just a funny exchange how she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, we can bone basically.
He was a former Imperial loyalty officer. That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for. So, one other quick thing I just wanted to throw out there that does happen, and it's a very, very short scene, and it is referred a little bit later in some of the other books. We get we get our first scene that also plays into the beginning of Rise of Skywalker. Is we've got this scene where this guy is selling what he is telling these basically cultists that this is Darth Vader's lightsaber.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say too much more about that. But yeah, so we do start to find out, because that's one of those questions. It's like, well, what did happen to Vader's lightsaber? Because if I remember correctly, he was holding it when Luke chopped his hand off. So it's like, well, then where the fuck did it go? Because I don't know. And it's also a question of, it's like, well, was that really his saber? And it's like, well, it was red. That's what you said. You were looking for a red saber. There you go. So, but yeah, there are all these little things, like you said, that pull in. That's just kind of just side steps, and it's like, all right, well, let's mix a little of this in, and then step back into the main story. So,
yeah.
So anyway, yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed the book. It is a lot to take in, but as you start to read the other ones, you'll see that it does flow all the way through, and it does give a lot of good information, or a lot of backstory to some stuff, and really kind of makes you care. And like we said with Snap Wexley, unfortunately, so for a fact he doesn't die throughout these books, because he survives to the into the
movies,
the new movies. But yeah, now that you read and you see him grow and become part of a team and everything else, and then in the other books you'll see him actually training to become a pilot and everything. To see him die on screen is like, oh, that kind of hurts now. So because before it was just like, well, Greg Grunberg wanted to be in the movies, he got in the movie. So honestly, it is not as heartbreaking as watching the Clone Wars though, and then watching Episode 3. It is heartbreaking to see some of these clone troopers that you actually get to pull for, and these Jedi that you get to know, and then to see them just slaughtered or literally turn and immediately start firing on, the Jedi, and you're just like, wow, this is a lot more weight. Like we definitely should have had this before we got Episode 3, because everyone would have been like, that was a really good movie. So anyway, well, like I said, our next book is going to be the second book in the series. I cannot remember what the name it's called. It's Aftermath, Life Debt. That's what it is. I will give you a hint. It is definitely more focused on our friends Han and
I was going to say, now that you say that they go more into that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
But the good thing with the second book is it doesn't start with all these stories from like different character points of views. It continues on, so it has a lot better flow. And now that you know what the interludes are, they don't seem as painful either.
No. Yeah, and once those interludes start connecting together, it definitely, some of them are just kind of like one track things, but like I said, the one in particular with the reporter, and you start to see their story going through, that's when that's, what that reminded me of. Have you ever read Watchmen?
Not read it.
Okay. In the Watchmen book, there's this kind of side story that's in there, and literally when the first time I read it, I read a couple of them, and I'm just like, I just skipped those parts and got to the main story. Eventually it makes its own sense if you go back, but it's really kind of like, I understand what you were doing, but maybe you should have taken that out and made its own thing. And I kind of felt that way with those. It's like, maybe you should have just put all those interludes together and that been a chapter or two, and we could have just followed all that through. But
I honestly thought you were going to say it reminded you of Starship Troopers, but
no. That's a movie I need to go back and watch again.
I'm waiting to see what happened with the kid that we got like one chapter of. His dad like shot his brother so he could escape, and then we see him again randomly at the end, I think, like shooting a laser or something, but that's all we get from him. So that's one of the stories I was like, what was the point of having that in this book?
I've forgotten about that one.
Yeah, I don't remember how that one plays out. Maybe it'll come back to me whenever I go through and reread the second book again. So
I remember it coming up in the second one, and I just finished it.
Maybe it doesn't come back up. I don't remember.
That was all he did.
Maybe that was it. Maybe that was all we got of him. So, but yeah, like I'm just kind of scanning through the document here, and I mean, like they at least reference all these different cities and all the, it's definitely trying to make you feel like, hey, this is all one tied in universe, and this is part of a bigger story. So, well, I guess that is it for the most part. Have you been reading anything else, Sean?
I've been listening to If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B movie actor. It's Bruce Campbell.
Oh my God, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. It's
Is he
different.
reading
it's read
it?
by Bruce Campbell.
Okay.
I did not realize that him and Sam Raimi basically grew up together too. I knew they were
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. They basically started doing these oddball movies and stuff like that when they were kids in Detroit. So I'm about a quarter of the way through it. Some of the little sidebars are a little odd, but no, it's
from Bruce
cool.
Campbell. No,
Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
I got to hear him talk at Comic-Con once, one of them, and he was great. Like,
oh yeah,
just in person, still as funny as you would expect.
Well, the opening for it, they had asked Sam Raimi to do a forward for it, and apparently that was just a total clusterfuck. And they actually have it they recorded it in his office and stuff like that with Sam and his brother and all that. When the ghostwriter left and all that, he just left his recorder playing. And by the time they got back in there, they had rummaged through the desk and stolen like a clock and stuff like that and left.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, it's weird, but no, so far I'm enjoying it. It's a good history lesson. I didn't even know Detroit had like theaters and stuff like that, but apparently
you
did.
live right near it. You should just go check it out sometime when you're.
I nearly lost the shocks in my vehicle when I drove through there. We usually fly out of there when we go places, but their roads are so horrible, and it's literally like, kids, lock your doors, kind of duck kind of thing in some of the spots. Damn Google. Yeah. Like the Google Maps suck. Way to take me here.
Yeah, I've had it do that to me before too. It's like, where are you taking me, Google?
Well, last time we went there, it had us like turning down this road, and I looked down there and I stopped because there's like a ton of guys out there with like chainsaws and stuff like that. They're like just neighbors, and they're like looking at trees and walking down the road, and like.
That's where Bruce Campbell gets it.
No shit.
Yeah, pretty much.
The chainsaw obsession.
So, if you're from Detroit and you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I probably just saw the really shitty part of your city. But it does explain a few things. And you have Bruce Campbell that grew up there, and he turned out all right.
Hey,
so
Detroit's bouncing back. They got a movement, an arts movement, and there's people trying to make things happen there. So
yeah, all good B movies. Apparently, a lot of them are filmed there.
I guess so. Yeah. Jen, are you reading anything else?
I finally finished a book I started in like January, a very tiny book that took me 4 months to read. The Sustainable Company. It's about Patagonia's, just their lessons in sustainability and how they became the company they became. It was very inspiring and very like eye-opening, the things that they've done, and they did it basically to encourage other companies to follow suit. So
sounds like a real page turner.
Yeah, it was. I just didn't have the time to read it. It was really good.
I was going through my Audible here, and I was like, okay, what have I read? And I'm looking through, and I'm like, Yeah, I haven't done anything new. I've got 2 credits sitting in my just sitting there, and it's mainly because I think I'm going to pull the trigger on one of those series you told me about, Sean.
There you go.
So I'm like, you know what? I know I'm going to rip through them really quickly. I don't want to have to wait to get to book 3 or 4 or whatever. So I'll just let it accrue until the next month. So probably come the 5th, I'll end up reading something and have 4 books and be able to go through them. In the meantime, I literally was just like, I've got a bunch of stuff going on. I just need brain candy. And so like I pretty much went through, I still haven't done the 6th book in the Magic 2.0 series again. Like I've reread all of them. I don't know how many times, but I went through that series again. I went through the Bobaverse books again. Just fun stuff. I love those stories. I love everything about those. So it's just like, okay, well, I'll just re-listen to this and this will be awesome. So. So yeah, I don't really have anything else new to add to that. So, with that being said, I think that is our show for the month, ladies and gentlemen. If you would please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Google Music, and Stitcher, or wherever else you may listen to the show. You can always catch us at epicallygeeky.com and at epicallygeeky on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Where can we find you online, Jennifer?
You can find me here, epically and creatively geeky and sustainably geeky, which had an episode drop last week, I guess.
Yep.
And that is the podcast for the Everyday Environmentalist. So if you're into sustainability, check us out. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Het's Gonna Be Me. And in 2 days, it's gonna be May. So that will actually make sense for a couple days.
Oh Lord. Sean, where can we find you online?
Right here at Marginally Geeky, Epically Geeky. I still haven't made the procrastinators yet. I'll get to it. And
we all will.
Wikipedia. So when you read Wikipedia, don't take everything as 100% because I might have been on there a couple minutes before.
God.
Just give you a heads up.
Screwing shit up.
Yeah.
Oh, can I?
Even my
Mess
kids
up who's
know
taking
not
a
to
mess.
take Wikipedia at
no.
face value because Dad.
You're
might
that
have been on it.
person.
Oh Lord.
You're that person.
And as always, you can find my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Jane on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For everyone on the site, have a good night.